Yeah. Sometimes so in your email system,
You're never going to replace it.
where it says to,
No, you're not.
and you type in the address on the computer sending to, often it just says an option for a C or a BC.
No, I'm not.
And you click on the BCC where you put the address in there. And it will send that email to everyone whose address you put in. And it doesn't make everyone else see the address. And if they reply, they'll only reply to you and not to everyone. It's pretty nice video. You should have, so my email system has a right here, email address. And I can create a list, like church. I don't know your system exactly, because I've never used it.
It does.
Now, if you do CC, it means that everyone sees each other. And that means they reply to everybody. She has an email, you can also send her a paper copy. Everyone else gets a paper copy that has no link. So like Jeanette Spade, Mary Martha, Carol Williams. I try, but you know, especially since it's your first go through, it's like give yourself some ability to engage and try and error and figure out what works for you. And feel free to change up the format however works best. Yeah, you can just blank out everything, you know.
So you're going to be really successful in it, actually.
Yeah, just like I did this last time. I'm going to try it earlier in the month, that way there's more time to work on stuff. That's fine. It's still good to have.
They were, Judy Benson, she took over. Yeah, no, she donated them, so she took them home. So, we made 1,100. Last year we made 1,600.
I think people like Mary Martha
Better.
and she finds help your contracts.
I'll actually assess the plate around. Okay. That way, folks who don't have trouble walking won't have to. Okay. Otherwise, everything's the same.
Now, I don't ever remember.
Nothing's ever normal. That's not,
Well,
that's not a real
normal is setting up washing machine.
Yes, exactly.
It was our best fire ever. They came in 3 times. Usually advised them, well, she first bought some stuff that was going to be well, they descended on her house and ate most of it. So then she came back and got some more. Well, then another grandson came from home.
What a joy it is to have to say, let's everybody take a seat and get quiet so we can start church. Usually with 3 people here, we don't usually have to do that. We are tremendously overjoyed to have Eldorado here and to have Derek. It's been a long time since Derek's been back, and everybody loves to hear his ruminations and elucidations.
And thank you for hosting us after all the busyness of Easter Fair down at the Eldorado Church. It's nice to be able to come, be in religious community, but the Eldorado folks don't have to actually run anything. They can just show up
And be at church.
And be at church, and then enjoy the food afterwards. We do not have, well, we have a sound system, but we don't use it because it interferes with the camera. So just be aware that anything you say on public goes into public. We have at least 5 people that watch us on Facebook, so it won't spread very far into the world, but it does spread a little bit. So, do we have any announcements?
Just a couple. We got good news this week from Marty Thompson, a former congregation.
Oh, yes.
And Marty has passed her preliminaries and it's all set for the ministry in UU Church.
Great.
So she obviously passed the test, I guess, and it's a preliminary status, but we wrote her recommendations, as you recall, a good while back, and so we wish Marty Thompson the best.
She's been in seminary and then working at it while she's been working at the whole time. So it's, and as we can all attest, as you get a little bit older, it gets a little bit harder to jam all that stuff into one day. So
that's right.
Congratulations to Marty, and she will be a real asset to some church coming up here in the future. Hopefully.
And for your program, if anyone needs one, I have one here. But also, I wanted to explain to you that we have a sunny Palm Sunday today. And if you're not living that exactly, it's right on the corner of your program there. I had intended that to be a verdant green, a spring verdant green. And the first couple started that way, and my printer is somewhat experienced, aged, if you will, as I am, but it was the best intention. You'll also see one again on the back of the program.
Actually, I would just say that was intentional. It's a shade from green to sun, and it's not very many people have the expertise.
It's very nice.
Yes, most people don't have the expertise to do that transition.
Yeah.
You may want to patent that. All right, our opening words are 416 in the back of your hymnal. Holy and beautiful, the custom which brings us together in the presence of the Most High, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened, and to be strengthened. Through this quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the cathedral music of history. 3 unseen guests attend, faith, hope, and love. Let all our hearts prepare them a place. Words from Robert French Levins. All right, our prelude, God Bless the Child, a Billie Holiday tune. see by our display on the PowerPoint, Palm Sunday is our concentration today. Normally a joyous time, and not so much this year, and we will be talking about that a little bit. Yesterday was the No Kings protest. I don't know how many of you were participants or aware of that. Over 3,000 across the United States. A large one in Montgomery County and Dayton. A large one in Eaton. They had about 125. We had over 200 at Greenville. All peaceful. Interesting to have the number of police standing around. Some people think they're to protect the protesters. That was not quite my understanding. But they were friendly. We talked to them, and only a few disparaging comments from people driving around the circle in the giant four-wheel drive trucks blowing out diesel smoke in everybody's face. So, yes?
I just want to add Troy as well.
Yes.
Had a very big crowd. I was only there for a few minutes. Got to see Lou and Denise
good.
there, and some Dolly. I saw Dolly. It was big. It was hundreds. It was great.
And some of the most interesting signs I've ever seen. Yes. The creativity. My only complaint is there was a guy who brought a boombox and played music. But you know, the new rap music is filled with words that I didn't grow up with, and I was taught you don't say that in public. And I actually stopped one of the police officers and I said, is there some kind of ordinance in Greenville that you can't say language like that in public? And he said, no, it's free speech. So carry on, but just let it be known that I am not a part of that little group who puts those words on signs and points it at people. That's not where we stand as Unitarian Universalists, or in my estimation, any church-going person would not be doing that. So, or maybe I should say church-professing person. So anyway, some of the slides let's just go into the first one. Some of the slides you're going to see are not going to be so happy. This is a Jerusalem procession on Palm Sunday. Is that this year? No, because there is a war going on in the Middle East. So no procession, no Jerusalem Palm Day procession. So one of the sadder notes that we will be talking about.
You can tell that's not the day. There's still buildings standing there.
This is Jerusalem. It's not being bombed. So although I didn't put it in, but there is a picture of the Jerusalem Christian Church, the holy church that the Christians have worshipped in for generations, was bombed by who? Does anybody know? It was bombed by Israeli Jewish fundamentalists. There is, and if you want to talk to me afterwards, sometime I'll do a presentation. The Jewish settlers are not only attacking the Palestinian farmers, these are the fundamentalist settlers, are attacking Christians. Christians who are walking through Jerusalem carrying a cross are being spit on. They're being hit with like handbags and things. It is pretty incredible, the things that are going on. It's almost as if Armageddon is almost upon us. So let's proceed here. Chalice lighting, Joy and Power That Grow by Jamie Yandel. We light this chalice for the quiet truths we carry and for the futures we're brave enough to write. In this circle, we honor the courage it takes to live openly, the softness that sustains us, and the joy and the power that grow when we gather. As the chalice glows, may we feel steadiness rise in us. May we trust that our becoming messy, radiant, unfolding, holy belongs to us. Our opening hymn is 262, Hosanna in the Highest.
As a side note, composed by John Howard Lathrop, a Unitarian minister from Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York, all right. such a blessing that when there's 5 people here, you don't hear a squeak. So. And if you did, it would be off-key squeak. So, all right. The next picture is a Christian graveyard in Jerusalem, and you can see the priests are looking at the damage that the vandals have done. Not street vandals, not people who are living a life of crime, but fundamentalist Jewish settlers who have something against Christianity. Maybe it's the proselytization. I haven't really gone into it that deeply. We may talk about that sometime in the future. We may have a Sunday for that. Our affirmation, Waving the Palms by David O. Rankin. Palm Sunday is found wherever we are serving a noble and unpopular cause with selfless devotion, holding to the ideals of truth and justice. Whenever we are seeking to uplift the fallen, to comfort the brokenhearted, to strengthen and encourage the weak and hopeless. Whenever we are working bravely and persistently in the face of abuse and criticism to establish more equitable relations in the world. Whenever we are sacrificing our lives on behalf of what we believe to be the service of love for all humanity. In short, DEI has a terrible label on it now, imposed from above, but DEI is something that we all can live by and should live by. Palm Sunday. All right, joys and concerns. Surely we have 1 or 2 of each. Yes, Dee Dee.
Gosh, I don't know why I'm standing up. Well,
You can stand up. You just have to talk loud.
Okay. I'd just like to have a candle, just one candle is fine. A candle lighted for my family, for myself, for my husband, our son, and our daughters. All of us are going through various kinds of problems, and there are times like that in our lives, and this is one of them, and I apologize for my phone.
I like the ringtone.
Thank you. My phone's not used to being at church. And I also have a joy being here. It's just great. I'm so glad to be here with you all.
Yes, Derek.
Thinking about the Eldorado congregation, it was an incredible joy to see Easter Fair Connie Seiler, who was up from Texas. It has been such a long time since anyone has seen her. I didn't know she was coming, Vera, and so when I saw her through the door, I made a beeline and gave her a big hug. It's been, I feel like, over a year since I've seen her, and maybe even a little longer, so it was a joy to have her back home in Eldorado. A concern, my mom has gotten some challenging health diagnoses recently, and so after Easter I'm going to go up to Michigan and spend a little time just giving her some company for a while. It's nothing earth-shattering, but it's the kind of chronic health diagnoses that older people sometimes get, and it means changes for her, so keep her in your hearts. Her name's Joyce.
And we will include in that candle all of us older people. We all have to make adjustments. I've heard it many times, and I agree wholeheartedly. Getting old is not for sissies, but it beats the alternative. Anything else? Yes, Mike.
I just wanted to share, I also, too, participated in the protest yesterday in Greenville, and I find that those experiences are very therapeutic for me. So often you read headlines and see news that makes you a bit uncomfortable, to say the least, and yet when I drove away yesterday, I just felt good, seeing friends as well as holding up some signs, nice signs, and nothing bad. I just thought it was a great experience. And when I about ready to retire last night, I read a statement from the White House, an Abigail spokesperson, I don't know her last name, and I didn't realize that we were such bad people.
Here, I thought it was therapeutic. Just a personal experience that I hope that others share across the country, because there were certainly a great number of people across the country.
And I put a little opening thing, a little blurb on the church Facebook page, and I also do it on my Facebook page. And you get some really interesting comments. And the sad thing is, and we've all seen this develop, the most harmful and hurtful are always those who object to any kind of liberal or libtard, as they like to call it. They can't seem to make a comment in disagreement, which everybody will respect anybody who has an honest disagreement, but is there any need to insult people all the time? That is just what is so discouraging about everything that's going on. And some of the comments that I was getting, they were asking about the frog suits. How many are aware of the people who wear frog suits? Do you know why they wear frog suits?
No.
This started in Portland at the anti-ICE demonstrations, the first person who wore a frog suit. It is to demonstrate to these conservatives who think we are evil, terrible people, that we are fun-loving, harmless, enjoying ourselves together as people. There were frog suits all over Greenville at the Circle, and I'm sure almost every other demonstration had not only frog suits, there was a dinosaur. People enjoy themselves. These, as Mike said, people enjoy getting together knowing there is support. When people drive around and give you the one-finger salute and yell out, Trump, 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 they are not hurting us, they are hurting themselves. They are telling us who they are. And it is a sad commentary. Not that there are people like that exist, but there are so many of them. Okay, we always light a candle for Israel, the Palestinians, and now, as I showed you, the Christians who are in trouble. The Israelis, if you aren't aware, have now invaded Lebanon. There is a river in Lebanon about 20 miles into the interior of the country. And Israel has said that is their goal, is to take over that 20-mile stretch between Israel and Lebanon, clear to the river. I showed you the picture, if you're from Eldorado, you're not aware, last week, that Israel has a map of greater Israel that includes parts of Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. That is the goal of the Israeli government, is to expand the state of Israel to 3 times its standard, its normal size. And they are in progress of doing that. The reason Palestine was basically demolished, every single building bombed flat to the ground, was so it can be rebuilt. The Israelis are calling for all the Palestinians to leave and go to Egypt, go to Saudi Arabia, go to Argentina, go anywhere is what they say, just don't stay in Palestine. It is an incredible sight to see the people who suffered under the Nazis become the thing that they have hated and fought against for so long. And we can't forget, we always have sunflowers for the Ukraine. They've been left in the dirt. The most interesting thing is the people who are, Iran is using drones to attack Israel and American military bases. Who are the people who are the best at defending against drones? The United States is going to the Ukrainians asking, how do we stop these drones? And the Ukrainians are helping us. It is another amazing fact that a lot of people are not aware of. All right. For some people, church is not supposed to be a political place. I am a political person, and to me, the church mission is a political mission in a time of crisis. So if anybody has an opposing opinion, they are more than welcome. I would love to have somebody come up and give the message on Sunday. As long as you don't use those words that I forbid, you can say pretty much anything else. All right. For those thoughts and prayers, those fears and trepidations that we don't always voice, that maybe we're not aware of, we light a final candle for those concentrations. All right, children's story is a real quick summation of the 2 sides of Palm Sunday.
It's the collision of 2 different visions of peace. The first is the Patronana, which looks for a peace that comes on the far side of war, a peace through domination and the subjugation of your enemies. In contrast, we have the Pax Christi, the peace of Christ, which is peace through suffering love. Jesus takes Zechariah's script and rewrites it. He rides the donkey and claims the kingship, but he refuses the war. He does not impose peace, as he doesn't conquer his enemies in any obvious way, but instead allows himself to be destroyed by them. The two armies.
So if you heard both sides, there is the peace, the Pax Romana, which is the peace of Rome, which is a peace imposed by force, which we see ourselves doing now, and the peace of Christ on the donkey, who allows himself to suffer to help the peace of the poor people. That is the division we face, and that is the choice that we have to make. All right, Palm Sunday begins in turmoil. Amen to that. Pastor Derek.
It is a joy to return to this pulpit. I have not been here for some time. I have two readings to share with you. The first from the Shinto tradition in Japan, the Arakita poem. Within the world, the palace pillar is broad, but the human heart should be modest. I'll repeat it because it's short. Within the world, the palace pillar is broad, but the human heart should be modest. And from the Christian New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew. When they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus gave 2 disciples a task. He said to them, "Go into the village over there as soon as you enter it, and you will find a donkey tied up and a colt tied up with it. Untie them both and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that their master needs them." He sent them off right away. Now this happened to fulfill what the prophet had said. "Say to daughter Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and riding upon a donkey and on a colt, the donkey's offspring." The disciples went and did just as Jesus had ordered them. They brought the donkey and the colt and laid their clothes on them. Then Jesus sat on them. Now a large crowd spread their clothes on the road. Others cut palm branches off the trees and spread them. The crowds in front of him and behind him shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessings upon the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest." And when Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil. "Who is this?" they asked. The crowds answered, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." This past week at the retirement community, where I work my day job, I was teaching a religious studies class, and our conversation veered into topics like the recent attack on the Michigan synagogue, Temple Israel, in West Bloomfield, Michigan, actually very close to where I grew up, and the difficult recent increases in the cost of living that all people are trying to cope with, threats of political violence here in the United States, and the unfolding of war in Iran. And this woman said to the whole class, "Have we ever seen the world turned so upside down?" Now the question was more rhetorical than anything else, less of a question, more of a statement. There wasn't a person in that room who did not think that our world was in some kind of turmoil, although a few did go on to name other times and places where they had known similar times of turmoil. But I know that I've felt the unease and anxiety of it all at the present time.
The world does not feel very firm beneath my feet. It does not feel fair. It does not feel just. It does not feel peaceful. Many of us are trying to cope with increases in energy costs that our income cannot keep pace with forever. We have already seen political violence in this country, where election results are not respected, mobs go on rampages, and politicians are targeted for murder. Anti-Semitism keeps rearing its vicious head at the same time that some in government justify the persecution of others in the name of combating anti-Semitism. And we face a war in Iran that has no clear purpose, no clear outcome. Economic crisis, religious persecution, political persecution, and violence are afoot in the world around us. And reasonable, compassionate people are naturally distressed. It's never been like this, but I think I wonder if it was ever perfectly peaceful. It's never been like this. Well, at least insofar as the combination of problems we face is very distinct, and a change from the world we knew and the world we thought we had built, and it's always possible that some of the times when we thought all was well, it maybe wasn't really all that well, because the turmoil of the world in those times was not really affecting us. So I'm thinking this morning about the bombings in Ireland during the 1970s and 80s. And I'm thinking about death squads and people disappearing in El Salvador in the late 70s and early 80s and the assassination of Bishop Oscar Romero. I'm thinking about the lives of gay people during the AIDS crisis. I'm thinking about black people under segregation. I'm thinking about the brutality of Belgium during its colonial control of the Congo. Oh, it's never been this way before, we say. But for somebody else, it may have been terrible at a time to which I was blind. Today is Palm Sunday, the commemoration of Jesus entering Jerusalem. Now, some churches will call it a triumphal entry, but while it has a festive feel, the triumph was only skin deep. As the story goes, as the story says, all of Jerusalem was in turmoil. The nefarious and corrupt Herod Antipas ruled as king of Jerusalem. This was the grandson of King Herod the Great, who you might remember from the Christmas story. King Herod Antipas ruled while firmly under the heel of the Roman emperor. Their representatives, like Pontius Pilate and the ever-present violent threat of the Roman army, were always there in the background. It was a land under military occupation. Jewish religious zealots were also always a danger. Not that they might overthrow Rome because there weren't enough of them, but they might act up enough to attract Rome's wrath. And the religious authorities who controlled the Temple of Jerusalem at this time were also corrupt, self-dealing, and hypocrites. It did not take supernatural power for anybody to think that the arrival of Jesus at Jerusalem might provoke violence, murder, death. And some in the cheering crowd were hoping that was what Jesus was going to bring to the Romans and to King Herod Antipas, and to the high priests, and they would be so disappointed to the point of rage when they would not be on that path with Jesus, because that was not the path that Jesus took. And they would become part of the crowd that less than a week later would be screaming at Pilate, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Because he would not engage in the political violence that they wanted. Palm Sunday is not a victory parade. It begins in turmoil. It's a bit of a farce. Jesus riding in on a donkey and a colt. Little bit of wink, wink, nod, making fun at the Roman generals who would ride in on chariots and war horses. Not with children behind them waving branches, but with soldiers, with spears and shields and swords. I'm going to say, though, perhaps it is better to have a little bit of turmoil than to be in a land where the violence, oppression, and corruption are just shrugged off as okay, where people thought that military occupation, self-serving kings, hypocritical religious authorities were just the way things had to be. Better to have a little turmoil, because it stirs up the water. It stirs up the waters so that we do not grow stagnant in our own hearts and minds and souls. The theologian Emanuel Swedenborg suggested that many Bible stories correspond to aspects of our spiritual growth. And by that theory, the struggles around Palm Sunday represent some of our own struggles. The state of turmoil is then the stirring up of the prophetic path, where we speak truths about not only the powers that be, but where we can also speak the truths about ourselves. Think of it as a kind of confession about the things we have done and the things we have left undone, not just an exercise in finger-wagging to blame others. As my mother once told me, when you point your finger at somebody, you've got a couple other pointing back at you. And yes, it doesn't feel comfortable. It can even hurt. We do not want to live in times of turmoil. We want stability and good feelings and peace. To live with economic crises, violence, discrimination, warfare, things that we did not start. But better to feel a bit of turmoil about these things being afoot in our world than to meekly accept them as normal, or to make excuses that these things are good, or to be blandly indifferent. I cannot and will not tell you what path you will be called down as you grow into this moment we are all living through. This moment that intersects the Palm Sunday story, that speaks with all manner of signs and symbols, that may speak to many of us, and that may speak unique things to individuals in this room. But know that turmoil can lead to change. Turmoil can lead to new life. There is an Easter morning. There will be an Easter morning. Or even just a springtime of the soul. But judge who you are growing into by these measures. Judge yourself by these measures. Are you growing more compassionate? Are you becoming more wise? Are you growing less fearful, even or especially in the face of the turmoil around us? The growth will not happen all at once, but it can happen if we are attentive, reflective, willing to evolve from the inside out, and willing to live that evolution, not just in thoughts, but in words and in our ordinary deeds. It can happen to you and to me. And so as I close my portion of today's spoken ministry, I leave you with a prayer by the famed 19th century Unitarian preacher Theodore Parker, not a relative of mine, Theodore Parker, but he is a wise soul worth thinking upon. And he once wrote to his own congregation in Boston, "O God, may we join the human race, daring to live in the prophetic spirit, seeking inspiration like the seers and the sages of this and other lands, envisioning a new and nobler era of the Spirit. May we have communities for the whole person, truth for the mind, good works for the hands, and love for the heart. Amen." It's Palm Sunday, and the message is not completely mine to give. I walk away from these gatherings almost every time with an insight that I did not have before. You may have questions stirring in your heart. You may have insights to share, things that will help us build one another up for the journey that's ahead of us. What would you share with one another this morning?
I continually look for some clues as to why I talked a little bit earlier about the people who are opposed to DEI, opposed to the principles, the concept, the ideas. What is the motivation, and is there, and I guess the crucial question is there any method, any trick, any ability to get through to these people?
I think one of the hard parts is that things have been publicly framed in a way, whether it's about diversity or inclusion or equity, although equity I think is the slipperiest of the three to kind of get a good handle on. These things have been publicly framed in a way that provokes people to think that something unfair is going on. And we have this moral palette in our mind that when that unfairness button gets pushed, people get upset because they don't like people being treated unfairly. They don't want themselves to be treated unfairly. The difficult part is that sometimes to fix long-standing problems, we end up doing things that require a certain amount of sacrifice, or at least holding back, maybe not being first in line every time. Sometimes you're going to do the hard work of imagining yourself in somebody else's shoes. And that can be really, really hard, to imagine yourself in somebody else's shoes, especially if those shoes are very, very different than your own. And their life experiences are different than your own. It is my hope that people eventually have those kind of life experiences where they see that things do not quite fit in the boxes they've put. that sometimes they get to know the people whose lives are very different than their own. I think of all of the people I've known over the years whose opinions about, for example, two men who are married to each other changed once they knew well two men who were married to each other. Once you know that and you realize, oh, it's pretty boring. It's not that different than my own marriage. Hearts can soften, but it's tough. And I don't know about you, Tim, but one of the things I have the hardest time dealing with, coping with, are the people who have so much rage that they vented out there. It's not just here in this country. In my Instagram feed this week, I got something not involving this country, but our friends and neighbors in Great Britain. What was the huge thing that happened this week in the United Kingdom? They consecrated a new Archbishop of Canterbury. And this Archbishop is a woman named Sarah. There has never before been an Archbishop of Canterbury who was female. And while many people were celebrating, and as far as I can tell, she is a good-hearted, faithful pastor. She began her vocation as a nurse. Her bishop's cloak has the silver fasteners that were on her nurse's uniform when she was a nurse. But in that Instagram feed, there were vicious things said about that woman pretending to be a priest. Really? Do you know her? Have you met her? Have you had any kind of ministry with her? Have you heard her preach? So much anger. Because a woman was made head of the Anglican communion. Yeah. And that's daunting to deal with the anger. I also know that when people are that angry a good amount of the time, they're often very unhappy deep down. And I would wish for better for them in life. Maybe I stumped you this morning. Maybe you're all getting hungry. Because our good hosts here at New Madison have provided us quite a spread. Well, if all hearts and minds are free, we will continue with the final portion of this morning's worship service.
Thank you, Derek, for inspiration and thought-provoking. And let me add, we're talking about, and that's, I guess my theme is injustice. How many of you are aware of what's happening in the Department of Defense, or is now called war? Blacks and women, there is an order out to prevent their advancement. No blacks, no women will be advanced to the level of general. And blacks and women who have been as that positions are being demoted out of that position. Are we really going backwards? When they say, bring back America, make America great again, is that what they think? Made America great? And you know the reason that is posted? And I don't know if this is true or whether this is a story that somebody made up. Our president does not want to stand next to a black officer at any organizational presentation. It seems too unfathomable to even consider. But I have learned and am learning that there is nothing unfathomable about this person. He will be signing our money. He's having a gold coin struck with his face on both sides. No kings, And let me say, ice out. All right, our offering. We're going to hear Lo the Earth again, and Derek is going to move we usually come up, but right now we're going to pass the plate because of the difficulty of getting in and out of the pews and walking all the way up here. So the plates will be moved.
And the blue plate will be our joint charitable offering for the UU Service Committee, which supports a number of causes both our congregations believe in. Current partnerships they have include a refugee resettlement program in Poland working with people displaced by the war in Ukraine, a refugee and immigrant rights center in Austin, Texas that includes both education and legal services, and a variety of programs in Haiti, a cause near and dear to the Eldorado Church, including a women's health clinic and a group that supports Haitian journalists who are trying to report safely about the political turmoil in their own country. So the blue plate will be the service committee donations. The brown plate will be to the congregation here at New Madison.
And we don't need any money, so if you have money to contribute it to the service plate. We are going to hear, and the earth awakes again. Number 57, All Beautiful, the March of Days. are on in the back of your hymnal at 694. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Words by Frederick Gillis. Our equine picture is the proverbial donkey. And donkeys, if you haven't had an acquaintance with a donkey, are pretty amazing creatures. Taken advantage of, disparaged, but they carry the loads for the majority of populations all around the world. If you look in Africa, if you look in Palestine, all these countries, donkeys. In the Philippines, donkeys are the ones that are carrying the loads.
They're also pretty smart.
They're smart enough to stay out of kind of trouble and get into other trouble when you don't. So
they're curious.
Yes. And donkeys, mules, we can go into donkeys and mules and all the arrangements. So, all right, the postlude. Let there be peace on earth. Reminds me of the Prairie Home Companion. How many of you have listened to that show?
Yeah. Oh.
And when he starts to sing and the audience joins in, where did you learn the words to all these songs? Church. All right, that ends our service. We leave one candle lit for those friends and family who are gone in time, gone in distance, sadly perhaps gone in spirit. Dig in. Do you want to say blessing?
Bless this food which is about to nourish our bodies. Bless the hands that prepared it and the fields that grew it. And in all that we do may we want for those who live in need. By every name we use for that which is holy, the people can pray and say, Amen.
Amen.
Jesus came in on the door. Yeah, what's the deal with the cold?
You can get your place up at the table, so sit your more seating, and then start on either side of the table.
Yes, that's why I'm gonna do it.
I've heard it cold, but I thought the cold we ordered to just like a young mule, like a young donkey. He sounded like he said, oh, Did he say colt and an ass or colt and
The colt and the donkey.
So I'm not sure. Well, you know, donkeys are used in racehorses often have a donkey in the pen with them or in
To keep them calm
to keep them.
and calm.
Horses are herd animals. And you put them on themselves, they
Yeah, it's breaking.
Yep.
I have one of those. I've been coming ever since my parents brought me as a little kid.
All kinds of goodies in there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not, my parents, mom and, mom and Nick, yes, yeah.